So as a reminder, everyone should join the channel. If you're listening in English, then it's the English or whichever language you are listening. So we just want to start with some announcements, including just reminding to speak at a even space for our neurodivergent community and also our interpreters. If we are going too fast, feel free to put it in the chat and we can slow down myself or anyone that's speaking in the moment. So most importantly, I want to thank everyone for being here. We do have a guest, Tara, who wanted to come and just make an announcement of some article she's writing to just speak to our families. So Tara, I've asked you to unmute and you can tell them about the article you were thinking about writing and speak to our families.
Okay, sorry, I was going back and forth fighting with the unmute button. My name is Tara Garcia Mathewson. I'm a reporter. My outlet is called the Hechinger Report. We are a nonprofit newsroom covering innovation and inequality in education. And I am working with the Boston Globe on a story about access to the district's bilingual programs, the dual language programs. The district as a whole, about 21% of students have or get special education services. In the dual language programs, it's much lower, between 7 and 14% across the various schools. And so I'm doing a story about limited access to dual language programs for kids who get special education services. And I'm looking for families, whether you have a student getting special education services in a bilingual school and can tell me about that experience, or if you have a child with an IEP who was dissuaded from enrolling in a dual language program, I'd like to hear from you. If you, any kind of stories around parenting bilingual children and getting any kind of advice, either for or against these programs from the district, I'd love to hear your story. My newsroom is based in New York City. I'm in Boston today, tomorrow, and Saturday. If anybody is interested in talking in person, I'd love to meet you while I'm in town. Otherwise, I'm going to put my full name, email address, outlet, and phone number in the chat. And feel free to reach out to me directly.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So I do see a couple of hands up. And
just responding to one question in the chat. I'm not working with a Globe reporter. I'm reporting the story myself, but working with Melissa Tabaoda, who's the editor for the Globe's Great Divide team that focuses on education.
Thank you. And Hannah, I think if you communicate in the chat, we can set you up if there's a disconnect from the interpretation channel. That's why your hand is up. Yeah, I should be able to assist you from the chat in that aspect. Another communication important that our families hear about today too is, as many people may know, the BPS currently has two very important positions that are going to be posted, I should say. One is the Chief of Specialized Services, which would be the head of all of special education, which impacts all of our students and our families. So there is a survey that is in the 9 major BPS languages that they have sent to us to just get feedback from our families, and hopefully the links didn't transfer, but so that our families can definitely send that information out. It asks about what are the skill sets you think are really important to make sure the individuals have for the Chief of Specialized Services. There is also the same survey for the Office of Multilingual and Multicultural Education, that chief. Now, some of our families are serviced by both departments, our multilingual learners with disabilities, then that in that particular case, it would be both of these positions. So we're going to put the surveys in the chat so that you are able to give your feedback on it. It is also, I'm sorry, because it didn't say for the different languages, but I do have the links for the various languages for the survey also. For now, I've just put the English one in the chat. And then we will have the other ones, the Office of Multilingual Learner one too. While we're going through the meeting, I will post that to make sure the links for the different languages is also available, so that you can fill out those surveys and get that information of what you think is important. What should they prioritize? What skill sets and experience is it important that these individuals really come into Boston ready to transform and lead these departments? So that is going to be something you're going to be seeing a lot of. So I wanted to make sure that was on everyone's radar. And then the other topic also is Edvestors is looking for families would like to nominate a school. It could be your school or a school you've seen that's just doing great work for the School on the Move prize. So if you know a school or you're involved with a school that is really doing exceptional work, especially when it comes to our students that are differently abled, and they're really creating that sense of belonging and educating our students, and you'd like to nominate them, there's a survey where you can nominate them. And once they're nominated, they would then be notified that they've been nominated and could then apply. This is the money that comes to the school from if they are selected, and just really being known as the gem in the district to really highlight that they are doing some great work also. So I just wanted to make sure that that was known also. So those are the announcements that I have thus far. So for now, I will turn it over to one of our SpEdPAC board members, Kelsey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roxy. Thanks again for everyone for being here. We're so happy you are. We have two, I think, really dynamic speakers tonight about important topics. And in the interest of time, we'll just get right to it. But we have Kathy Vitello, who is here as the Director of Operations from the Planned Lifetime Assistance Network of Massachusetts. And she's going to be talking in depth about, what is a special needs trust and what are the benefits of that kind of planning for our families. So that's a really important topic we'll dive right into. And then following her presentation, Adele Winter, who is the Vice President of Advancement for the Cook Center for Human Connection, will be talking about an equally important topic that's both acute and on the minds of lots of our families too, which is really supporting families through mental health development. And their organization really brings together, the best organizations and programs to support mental health and to prevent suicide. So it's a topic obviously not talked about enough, but is really prevalent and important. So again, in the interest of time, first we'll hear from Kathy Vitello. Again, her program serves people with disabilities to preserve and protect assets. We'll learn more about that from her. And of course, we'll try to make time at the end for questions. So Kathy Vitello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll turn it right over to you.
All righty. So Nancy needs permission to share the screen so that she can put the slides up. And I want to thank everybody for their time this evening. I know it's late. People are tired. They haven't worked all day. So my name is Kathy. I am the Director of Operations for the Plan. I have been here for 10 years. I am a social worker by background. I started with Plan as a service coordinator. That's what we call our social workers. And in 2018 became Director of Beneficiary Services, and 2020 became Director of Operations. So hopefully by the end of this presentation that you'll have a better understanding of what a special needs trust is and why it's really important to think about these things for you and your family. And also,
Kathy, I'm just going to pause you for a moment because we just need you to slow down a bit. Thank you.
And then the role of a professional trustee. Plan of Massachusetts and Rhode Island is a 501c nonprofit organization that serves as a professional trustee for special needs trusts. We were founded in the 1960s by a group of parents who were very concerned about what was going to happen when they weren't here anymore, who was going to look out for their children and advocate for their needs. As far as we know, we're the oldest and largest special needs trust in Massachusetts and New England, actually, and we became incorporated in 1971. So we're 51 years old. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary. We proudly serve all people of with disabilities, whether they're lifelong or related to illness or injury, to preserve assets and protect their benefits, but hopefully at the end of the day, also live well. That's a very important mission to us. So a special needs trust is an opportunity for families that have children that or family members with disabilities that want to make sure that they're cared for in the future and that they have public benefits. So in order to have public benefits, you have to live within the poverty guidelines, right? And you don't want to discount those public benefits because often that's what gets access to a lot of the programs. And as I go through this, I will talk about different types of special needs trust. But really, it falls under the 1993 Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. I think I said that right. It's known as OBRA. And Clinton was president at the time, and he signed this act, which was allowing families to be able to set up these trusts. They're called supplemental needs or special needs in order to supplement what the benefits don't cover. So it helps people to plan for the future. Often it gives many family members peace of mind, knowing that their loved ones are going to be protected and provided for when they're gone. It provides the beneficiary with resources to improve the quality of their life. And all of our social workers are well experienced in the world of disabilities and public benefits, and every beneficiary is assigned to a service coordinator throughout the life of the trust. They help guide them on how to utilize the trust. So, when we look at your public benefits, there was a study that was done in 2021 that said that the average individual with a disability requires approximately $18,000 more a year for living expenses than you and I would. And there's lots of other studies that have been out there about how much it costs to raise a child with a disability, depending on what your needs are. And we look at things like time out of work or loss of work and equipment. It could cost $85,000 a year. And when you're not here, those things don't get covered. So when we talk about special needs trusts, I'm going to focus more on what we call a third party trust, but there's what we call a first party trust. And that means I'm the person with the disability and I got a settlement or an inheritance and I don't want to lose my benefits. So I can put that money into what they call a special needs trust. So that's a first party trust.
Kathy?
Yeah.
If I may, I'm noticing in the chat, and I can hear it too, people have mentioned that the audio is a little bit choppy. I don't know if there is a way to, if you're using a speaker or a headphones or something, if there's a way to make your audio a little clearer.
I'm going to try something, okay?
Thank you.
Can you still hear me? Can you?
Yeah, we can.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Is that better?
That sounds a little better, yes.
Yes.
Good. So what we call a first party trust, my money, I'm the person on benefits. So I'm going to open the trust, and that trust has what we call a Medicaid payback to it. So if something happens to me, I pass away, Medicaid has a lien against the funds in the trust. They're entitled to be paid back for anything that I paid out in my lifetime. And then a third party trust means that I have set funds into these special needs trusts for my family member to supplement their needs. And then if anything happens to that family member, those funds will go to whoever I decide that they go to. And Medicaid has no claim about that, to that money. And there's several ways to establish a trust. So for the first party trust, you could have what they call, a D4A. That means one trustee, one beneficiary, and one trust document. And then a third party standalone would be the same thing. One trustee, one beneficiary, one trust document. And then we have what we call the pool. So the pooled trust is where we pool all the money for investment purposes only, because there's power in numbers and everybody has their own sub account. And in the pool, you can have first or third party trust. And then there's what we call future funded. So you can set up a trust. Yes, it's for any disabled person. You can set up a trust that's not funded, but you can arrange for your estate or your life insurance, your 401, whatever it is. You can make the beneficiary designation the special needs trust for the benefit of your family member, so that it's in place. And one of the good things about doing that is that the money, when the time comes, won't ever go into the beneficiary's hands. It won't interrupt their benefits. So these trusts are for anybody with a disability of any age and any type of disability at all. You can open these accounts for your family member, but if it's your own money, there's no transfer penalty and there's no look back period. So anybody who's applied for Mass Health or Medicaid will know that they have a 5-year look back period. That's not applied with these types of trusts. And often with families we talk to, they worry, like, I don't know how I'm going to fund this. I'm never going to be able to retire. I'm never going to be able to travel. But you can take the beneficiary designation on your life insurance, 401, retirement accounts, anything like that. That's a way to do it. It's not terrible to have a first body trust, and you can have both third and first. So say you opened a future funded account for your child, you could have all your family members that wanted to leave money. They could also put the money into the trust for that person. It's a great way to make sure that your wishes are going to be carried out. Next slide. So now you know about special needs, a little bit about special needs trust, and what are we looking for with the trustee, right? There's a lot of responsibility to be a trustee. It's almost a full-time job. So we look at what are the services that somebody needs now, and what kind of services do we think they're going to need in the future? There's technical skills and knowledge that's needed to be a trustee. And in order to be the trustee, a professional trustee of a pooled trust, you have to be a nonprofit organization.
Kathy, can I just stop you for one more quick second? Would you mind just laying out for families real quick, what is a trustee?
The person who is in charge of dispersing the funds out of the trust.
Thank you for clarifying that for people.
Yeah. So we don't have any minimum requirements to establish the account. However, if you're going to fund the account immediately, we do recommend at least $10,000. And we have the social workers. We take a very holistic approach to being a trustee. We want to know our beneficiaries. We want to make sure that they're being cared for, that their needs are being met, and that they're accessing everything that they're entitled to. So they become the primary contact between the beneficiary and the trust. They meet with the beneficiaries, they go out and assess their needs, and they maintain, regular contact with them. We have an all-inclusive model. So our management fee covers the disbursements, the investments, the accountings, the tax preparation statements, as well as the veteran team of social workers. So, this way, at least in my experience, through all these years of being a social worker, money in a relationship really causes a lot of conflict. And you want family members to maintain that contact, and you want a beneficiary to feel like they have somebody that's going to support and help them advocate. So, say somebody came and said to the trustee, "Oh, I want a Porsche." We're going to say, "No, that's not a good idea, but maybe a Toyota would be be a more reasonable vehicle. And then they can go to their family member and say, I don't like those trustees. So they can help advocate, and it keeps the relationships intact so that they can spend time together, holidays, and they feel like you're supported. So it provides that peace of mind as well. You know that your family is going to stay together. So our service coordinators, we currently have eight social workers on staff, and we're going to be adding 2 more real soon. And they're all licensed and they're all well experienced, and you know, they're just, it's a good team of people. They're very caring, compassionate. They get to know their beneficiaries. We go visit them where they're at, their homes, their group home, wherever they're at. We want to see how they're doing. We want to see that they're being cared for and that their needs are being met. And then as they get to know each other, we develop with the beneficiaries what we call a spending plan, which is a guide of how we're going to use the funds. So we're looking at what are your immediate needs and what are some anticipated needs. And then we discuss with the beneficiary, what are your goals for this? What would you like to see happen with these funds? Excuse me, and even with the future funded people, we reach out, we talk to the family members and develop what we call a life care plan. So that's going to tell us all about the family, the beneficiary, the support systems, the benefits, the providers, their interests, and then what your goals are for the money. What would you like to see happen with those funds as we go forward? You know, I have so many stories in my head, but you know, we had one person who picked a family member as a trustee. And by the time the funds were available, that family member had a lot of health issues of their own. So they had to shop for a new trustee. And after they signed the paper, they said, oh, good luck, he doesn't let anybody in. But our social worker worked really hard to develop that relationship, and also got a companion in there and got him back out in the community, and also helped clean his apartment up because he was about to be evicted because of hoarding. And we got him all brand new furniture, and he's doing really well. We have other people that are into art or music, or the massage therapy that helps people. We use those trusts to really improve the quality of life. It's really important to us. So once you decide you want to go forward with plan, say you can go to our website, and there'll be contact information on the last slide. You can choose an attorney to work with. We always recommend that you meet with an attorney. If you're joining the pool, you don't have to. The master trust documents are in place, but we recommend it because you're signing legal documents. And once that happens and you deposit funds into the trust, your service coordinator reaches out within a day or two of the trust being funded and sets up that time to meet with the individual right where they're at and with whoever they choose to be there for their support systems.
Kathy, can you hold on for just a second?
Thank you.
We seem to be having a trouble with the Spanish interpretation channel.
So the Spanish channel is working fine. I was on the channel and the interpreter is providing interpretation. Yashi, can you come on this English channel and in Spanish, remind people to hit where the globe is, because she is providing interpretation on her channel.
Yeah, let's just have her. Tracy, if you don't mind joining and then letting the family know. Yes. Or they can write in the chat, Tracy, say that. So we just want to make sure that Martha is all set, I believe it was.
Thank you for your patience, everyone.
And I think this was all set because Tracy did respond in the chat.
Yes, and she's come on this channel and said it, so thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Kathy, please
Thank you.
proceed.
That's okay. So when you think about picking your trustee rate, a lot of people think millions of dollars, big money, but our trust, we have folks with 10,000, we have folks with over $1 million, it doesn't matter. If you go to a bank, they typically require 500, $1 million or more in order to serve as a trustee. Or if you use an attorney as a trustee, they're going to charge you for every phone call, every email, every disbursement. Where with us, it's all inclusive. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
So ABLE is everybody's favorite subject these days, achieving a better life experience. And it's, so I'm going to compare the differences, but it's not one or the other. It's a great partnership. ABLE has only been around for a short time. It is, the requirement is that your disability has to have been determined prior to the age of 26. And it can only be used for what they call qualified disability expenses. And you can only put into an ABLE account whatever the gift tax rate is for the year. So for 2023, it went up to $17,000. The only exception to that rule is if the person, the disabled person themselves is working, they can put an additional $13,000 in there. Once your account reaches $100,000, your benefits are suspended. You won't lose them, but they will be suspended. If you reach 500,000, you lose your benefits. You're only allowed to have one ABLE account. So if Grandma out Wisconsin opens the ABLE account, that's the only ABLE account you can have. And as I said, it's limited to qualified disability expenses. And in the very fine print, it has a Medicaid clawback. So when I talked earlier about Medicaid payback, Medicaid comes and looks at whatever they paid out in your entire life. ABLE only goes back to the date that you established your account. Your special needs trust can have as much as you want in it, and you can have more than one account. We actually have beneficiaries that have several accounts. We're not restricted to qualified disability expenses. What we look at is your benefits. So I talked a little earlier about benefits. A lot of folks are used to supplemental Social Security income.
Did we lose Kathy?
Kathy's temporarily frozen. Maybe if you give her a moment.
We're going to need to move on shortly anyway.
I don't know if the Kathy's calling. Oh, there she.
Kathy, can you hear us?
While we wait
So who
for,
was, I was gonna say, who was her co-host, her colleague that was advancing her slide? Perhaps they could support.
It was Nancy.
I'm writing to Nancy now. Thanks for being patient,
if
everyone.
I can make a quick comment while we get Kathy back. Something very important that she alluded to here. Your child is gonna lose their benefits if they have basically a bank account with more than $2,000 in it. And when you consider that Social Security disability will pay you anywhere from $500 to $750 a month, and Mass Health will pay a primary care non-guardian $700 a month,
Yeah.
you could be looking at $1,500 a month easily
Mm-hmm.
going into that child. If it doesn't go, if that money isn't transferred into an able or a special needs account,
No, I'm trying to.
they'll hit $2,000 real fast and they will lose their benefits. And that's the beauty of able accounts and special needs trusts. It protects you from having to reapply for all those benefits. And trust me,
You don't
applying
want
for
to.
the benefits is non-trivial. It's really long. It's hard. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. There's a lot of
Yep.
paperwork, but it's worth it. But you got to protect the money, and you can't let your child show that they have more than $2,000 at any time, or you're
That's right.
totally out of luck. So
Yeah.
so even
And
though
to
we
lose,
talk about $1 million, whatever, no, you care if you're going to have more than 2,000, and trust me, you will.
can you hear me now?
Yes, Nancy.
Yes, and to add to that, if your child decides to take the money and lose the benefits, reapplying is a nightmare. If you think applying is a nightmare, reapplying is worse.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and as I said, it's always good to consult legal counsel. And if you don't have one or you need a referral, we're more than happy to give you the name of 3 attorneys in your area that specialize in this, because attorneys are like physicians. They specialize. And you'll open up your newspaper or look at a billboard and they all say, oh, I do trusts, I do wills, I do estates. And I can't tell you how many trust documents had to be rewritten because they weren't written correctly. There are attorneys who are certified in this area. So we're more than happy to give recommendations for that as well.
Nancy, we're
Nancy,
going to
do you,
need to wrap things up on your side to move along. Do you have any
Okay.
final words or
Yep,
anything?
we do consults for free. You can call as much as you want. You can come in and see us. If it's a hardship, we can come out and meet you. But we're always happy to answer questions. We recognize what a big, scary decision this is for folks.
and Nancy, lastly, didn't I see correctly that your headquarters or where your office is actually moving? Aren't you headed to a new location for families sort of looking for you?
We just moved to Quincy in July.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Really helpful, and I'm hoping people heard how important sort of even making the plan for the plan is, to be thinking
That's
about
right.
it earlier.
Right,
rather than-
if you think about building a house, right? You're gonna go to an architect, get a set of house plans, and then from there, I have to figure out like what's the budget, what's the inflationary cost that I have to think about, what are the tools I need, and your special needs trust is a tool in that toolbox.
And
Definitely.
I think there's a question in the chat about what if I work and I save money? Will it affect my child benefits?
No.
No.
No, your money is yours. It's only if you give it to your child. And this is where you want an able account or special needs trust. Think of it as a paper doll. The law hits the paper doll before it hits your kid. So as long as the money's in the paper doll, they go, oh, okay, fine. Then I don't have to worry about it. The law goes, oh, that's not actually there. And they go to the kid. They go, the kid has no assets. Here you go. Have some money. It's really it's a way that the government it's a path the government has taken to recognize that there is absolutely no way that people who through no fault of their own will be able to maintain a lifestyle that they should be able to maintain otherwise.
Mhm.
And so they created this very, very generous workaround. And it's complicated because they want to make sure people aren't lying or ripping us off.
Mhm.
But it's
Right.
absolutely worth it. It's an incredibly valuable tool, and it's very compassionate for our kids. And I think it is absolutely worth all of us investigating this. This is a transition issue. Your kid's
Mhm.
14, start thinking about this stuff.
That's right. That's when you
And
look at
Kathy,
that.
can you also put your contact information in the chat? Because some people are asking if you could put your contact information in the chat.
And
Many of you should know, I
go ahead.
got this white beard before I started thinking about this stuff. So
Well, we really appreciate that. That was hugely helpful. I'm sure there's also be able to see the slides at a later point if that's helpful to families. I wanted, just because someone has joined us sort of at the last minute in the meeting, and I wanted to be sure to introduce her as well before Jack introduces the next speaker. We do have Andrea Amador on this call as well. She's the Senior Director of Behavioral Health Services for BPS. So just both a quick shout out to her and to welcome her. Dr. Andrea Amador is here. So she's here to support. And if you have questions for her in the end, I know she'd be more than happy to answer them, or you can certainly address them in the chat, but just wanted to let you know she's here.
Okay, so next up is Adele Winter. She's Vice President of Advancement for the Cook Center for Human Connection. If you haven't already, Adele, if you get a chance, if you could put your contact information in the chat, if you want to hear from anybody afterwards. If not, then don't. But
Oh, I put it up. It's there.
Thank you very much for joining us. Take it
My
away.
pleasure. And happy spring, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks, Nancy.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. I need somebody to stop sharing. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. Let's see. Somebody needs to let me share.
You have co-host access, Adele, so you should be all set.
All right, let's see.
Let me know if
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Dr. Amador and Ayashi for helping me get to you and get this information to you. Again, my name is Adele Winter. I am a vice president of the Cook Center for Human Connection. I'm going to show you a couple pretty cool resources tonight, and then find some time at the end for questions. So when I'm actually in my screen share, I'm going to just keep on moving so that I can show a lot of live material. So you'll get to see a lot of what I'm going to show you live. And then when I come out of share, we can definitely go to questions and answers. The Cook Center for Human Connection is a nonprofit foundation, and we were created to focus on mental health support for families and suicide prevention. A quick story about our benefactors. We are here because two people, very, very important people, did well in business. They actually were co-founders of doTERRA Essential Oils, Greg and Julie Cook. So they are our benefactors for the Cook Center for Human Connection. They gave a sizable donation to a local hospital, and the hospital said, may we use this for mental health support? They said, of course. At the same time, an 11-year-old took his life by suicide on their block, and it was their job to tell the parents. Right then and there, they said, this is what we want to dedicate our money to. This is what we want to dedicate our family to. And what we believe is parents, families, caregivers, you are the #1 protective factor for our children. Yes, we definitely work with school districts, we work with communities, we work with professionals, but you as parents are the #1 protective factor. So a little bit about how we started, that's our mission, and we have 3 pillars of support. We do direct giving, but tonight we're going to talk about the direct support right there in the middle for schools and families. And we're very focused on social change. So you're going to see lots of things come up on the screen where you're going to see we have some pretty far-reaching partners and goals. And so we're pretty proud of our partners. One of our resources that we're really not going to talk about much tonight, My Life is Worth Living, is on the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. We feel super honored to be on there with My Life is Worth Living. But look at some of these other real powerhouse groups that we're a part of. AFT, the Association of Superintendents. We run for AASA, the mental health cohort, where we're bringing school districts from all over the country together to talk about mental health and how we can all support mental health for our kids. But we always talk about parents. We always talk about families being that support. We do give out grants. We give out direct grants. Right now, all the grants are closed, but we are driven by the following. These are really powerful and sobering statistics, but this is what drives us every day. 20 kids a day die by suicide, and the ages are getting younger and younger. We know that there's solutions, and we can wrap our arms around this together, and we can make things better. But we are concerned because social media has had not a great effect on our kids. So as you can see, suicidal ideation and attempts in younger kids has more than doubled. And you can see the research. The research really does point to social media and just the fact, the anxiety that our kids are on their devices and no think time, no downtime. So we're very focused on that, and we hope to help get information out through school districts to parents to help their kids. And everybody's sounding the alarm right now. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the Surgeon General just did a podcast, and here's what he said. He said, these 3 statistics are things we need to be aware of, and we need to roll up our sleeves and fix, right? Usually takes about 11 years for the average child to receive treatment. Well, that's too low. 57% increase in the suicide rate before the pandemic. And then we have a lot of high school students that just report they're feeling sad and hopeless. So here's what we can do. Again, let's lock arms. Let's get to this. We need to provide more access, more people. Our schools and your districts really, really good about being involved. And we need to break the stigma. We have to be able to say, yes, I need help. So here's a quick video on what we do. And we can't wait to just do more for your school district. So let's go ahead and watch.
The well-being of every child matters. In every classroom, in every school, in every district. That is a lot of children. Too many for every single one of them to have enough one-on-one time with teachers or school counselors. But parents have an expectation that their school will be helping with the mental health of their child. That is why school districts around the country are partnering with ParentGuidance.org, a resource created with therapists to teach parents how to navigate mental health issues with online courses, one-on-one parent coaching, and family mental health seminars that will truly help parents improve the lives of their children. We understand how complex the world has become for children, and we are here to support you by helping your parents take charge of their children's mental health.
So we're going to talk a lot tonight about ParentGuidance.org. At another time, if you'd like, I can come back and share more information about My Life is Worth Living, but I want to spend most of my time on ParentGuidance.org tonight. ParentGuidance.org is a website that we have created, the foundation supports. So you can get on ParentGuidance.org right now, sign up, and you're going to have access to over 50 courses written by therapists. It's private, it's 24/7, it's on demand, it's in your home. Everything's in your control. And you anonymously can go through these courses and learn. Their self-help courses. I'm going to go live and show you in the next slide. But we're covering a lot of topics in ParentGuidance.org. Here's a section that I'm going to go live and show you as well. It's called Ask a Therapist. You can actually go on ParentGuidance.org, ask a therapist a question. But if you went through the FAQs, the frequently asked questions, we house answers right there. There's a good chance the question that you wanted to ask has already been asked and answered. So let me go live into parentguidance.org right now. This is parentguidance.org. Let me see if I can move this. Oh, no, I can't move that. Let's see if I can get to the courses another way. All right, so we are live right now on parentguidance.org. And we talk about, yes, we know parenting's hard sometimes. And 50% of parents do worry about their child struggling. You're not alone. And then, yes, we have courses to help. We address the tough stuff, but we also address common issues and questions and concerns that parents have. So if I knew how to move this, I'm going to do this right now. There we go. I can show you some of the courses. So here we go. Here are the courses. If you're in parentguidance.org right now working on your own, you go to the upper left-hand corner and you go to courses. Obviously, it wants me to change my password and I just keep ignoring it. So take a look at some of these courses. These are 3 of our top courses. This is Connecting with Your Child by Parenting with a Purpose. This is a basic parenting course. This is a great course here, Helping Your Child When They're Bullied. Let me tell you about Dr. Melissa Lopez Larson. Dr. Melissa Lopez Larson is a Harvard-trained adolescent psychiatrist, and she is so booked out. You couldn't even get in to see her for 9 months. Just trying to get in to see her is so hard. But she came to us and she said, I am tired of telling parents that I can't see them. I want to write this course. So she wrote this course for us, Helping Your Child When They're Bullied. That's Dr. Melissa Lopez Larson. Let me show you some of these other courses. Basic courses, like what can I expect as my child is forming their emotional development? What's going on for my child age 15 to 18, 19 to 22? Why is my child self-harming? This is where I would have been if when I was raising my son, I would have been living right here. Because boy, those middle school years were pretty darn challenging for us. But look, take a look. Here's Understanding Your Child's Emotional Development, age 5 through 10. And this is real big for us. When I talk to you about some of these other wraparound services we provide, we do a lot of work with teaching parents what to know, the apps on your children's phones, because digital media is really having an effect on our children. And so that's important that we get that research out, we get that information out. There's a whole section by a therapist named Jenna Ramirez. She's fabulous. She does a whole move towards section. You know how as adults, it's hard to go through some of these emotions, right? Well, she talks about face them, move toward them so you can get through them. So move toward anxiety, move toward anger and frustration, grief, sorrow, fatigue, and exhaustion. Great, great courses that you're going to want to spend time with. And look at all these self-help courses. Take a guided meditation, everyday happiness. So the foundation puts this together so that you can be strengthened as parents and have all the resources at your fingertips. And everything here is in a glossary. So these are the courses that are in the glossary. Now I'm going to show you. And for those that are following along and you're already on this, you can go to Ask a Therapist. And I'm going to show you a question and how it's answered. So here in the FAQs are questions. So here's a good one from Jenna Ramirez. She talks about boundaries and setting boundaries for our kids. I'm going to show you a little bit of this. And it always remembers me, so it's going to log right back in again.
Sorry, Adele, to interrupt with one quick question from the chat. If families wanting to know, are all of these courses free?
Yes, they are. That is part of our mission as a foundation. We try to get as many resources out to you as possible. Generous contributions from our benefactors have created parentguidance.org and mylifeisworthliving.org. There are more wraparound services that districts can contract with us on, and I can show you a little bit about that. But yes, please, we want you to use this. And I proudly will show you that your district has the medallions up on the website. So let me show you this, and then I'll go back and show you how you can access it from the district's website. So here's a question. How do I get my kids to use their inside voices? They never listen to me. Well, I think we've all been through that, right? So it's just your basic. Not everything's about suicide. Not everything's about the tough stuff. So take a look at how she answers this. And she talks about boundaries. And see their video responses in addition to transcripts.
Good morning. I've got a new question I want to answer for us today. The question is, how do I get my kids to use inside voices? They never listen to me. Love this question. This can be so hard. And it is a wonderful example of the power of boundaries and follow through. So usually when we have a situation where kiddos are not responding to what we're requesting of them, it can mean that we are not following through on consequences with the behavior. So kiddos' jobs are to push our boundaries. That is their natural proclivity. They're learning how to follow rules and how to be respectful. And so our job as parents is to think through what boundaries are important to us in advance, and then connect that to appropriate consequences. And then when the kids predictably step over the line, which they will, to follow through on the consequences calmly and lovingly, but consistently. So for example, if using inside voices in the house is something that's a high priority for you to teach your children, then you would want to give some advanced thinking to what you want the natural consequence to be if they choose to not use inside voices. It might be that they will need to put on a jacket and go outside even if it's cold and they don't want to. If you decided that was the consequence that you wanted to use, then ideally you would let the children know that in advance.
So that's just an example of one of the therapists and the video answer. And as you can see, the transcript is there as well. And yes, it is in Spanish. And we're releasing more and more every day. So let me see if I can pull up one of the courses. See if I can, I'm going to show you a little bit of Dr. Lopez Larson and how she talks about bullying. And this is one of our latest courses. Let's see if we can get into the introduction. And it's always good to know you've got a therapist right at your fingertips with parentguidance.org to help you through some of these issues. You know, I love when she talks about stopping the bullying cycle. Bullying in social media. I'm going to get started here, but then I'm going to switch over to the social media because I think that's really causing all of us as parents concern, right? So let's watch Dr. Lopez Larson.
Hello, I'm Dr. Melissa Lopez Larson. I'm a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist. And for this series, I'm going to be talking to you about bullying. Now, bullying is a pervasive issue that I have seen growing exponentially over the past several years, and I see it a lot in kids and teens, and I talk to a lot of adults about their history of bullying in the past. In this modular series, we're going to talk a little bit about what bullying is, what bullying isn't, and then I'll walk you through the general ecosystems of treatment. In addition, I'm going to be talking to you about preventative strategies and special topics related to how to work with your schools and also to identify and target bullying in the sporting world as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and jump right on in.
I'm going to take us over here because this is, like I said, this is on everybody's mind right now. Social media and bullying in social media. And let's see how she handles this. And remember, this is again 24/7 on demand, private, in your home. You can access any time you want.
Welcome back. In this next section, we're going to talk about bullying and social media. And as we all know, there's an increased use of social media, which has resulted in a major shift as a society of how we communicate with each other. You know, in a lot of ways, it has increased our access to people otherwise not known. But it's also resulted in superficial relationships that are not always steeped in respect, trust, or kindness. You know, oftentimes people are going to say or do things on social media they would never say to somebody in person. And this is particularly true for kids and teens. And unfortunately, there's adults as well, and unfortunately, adults as well. And so one of the things we want to be sure that we're safeguarding our children and our teen from cyberbullying. And cyberbullying is just bullying, but using some type of technology, whether it be texts, you know, online posting, was it pictures, videos, video games, etc. Now, the scary thing about cyberbullying is it can actually be done anonymously, and sometimes it's difficult to detect. The reach of cyberbullying is also worrisome in that it can
Now, the good news in this course is she really breaks down what a bully is and what drives a bully. And most of the time, those bullies have been bullied themselves in the past. So she really does talk a little bit about the science of it. And as you can see, she goes deeper into bullying in sports, additional tools to help your child overcome any kind of bullying that they come across. So I'm very, I very much like Dr. Melissa Lopez Larson and the work she does. So I know you'll appreciate her for sure. Let me
Adele,
keep going.
I'm so sorry, Adele, to
Yes.
interrupt you. It's Kelsey. No, I just was
Kelsey.
thank you so much. I'm just looking at the clock. I want to make sure. I know people are going to have questions for you. I'm fairly confident. So I just want to be sure. I think people are getting a good sense of how the videos work, but I'm wondering if you can pivot so that we're sure to have time for their questions.
Absolutely. So I have my phone set to give me at least 5 minutes for Q&A. If you want, I can probably even go 10 minutes on Q&A. Would that be helpful?
Yeah,
Super
that'd be
helpful.
great.
That would be great.
Okay, perfect. All right, so parentguidance.org is in Spanish. We're releasing more and more every day. This is what school districts do. This is what community centers do. This is what city websites do. And I was able to just pull this off your website today. So thank you, Yashi, for putting this up there. You can get to parentguidance.org. And I know Dr. Amador has a version as well. Right there on the school website, go right to parentguidance.org. And that's where you can find everything that I'm showing you right now. Okay, so I'm just going to cover some of the other resources at some point in time you may be hearing about. MyLifeIsWorthLiving.org is another resource that we put together. We say PG-13 and above, dealing with some of the real tough topics. But we're always talking about hope. We're always talking about safety. And we're always trying to make sure parents have all the tools they need. We do individual mental health series where we're actually doing virtual topics like tonight, what we're doing right now, but we'd be doing it on varying topics like bullying, like depression, anxiety. And so at some point in time, you might see the district engaged in that. And one of the other things that's come up is providing family coaching. And so that's one of the things we do for districts at some point in time, if we get into a contract where we can provide 24/7 access to family coaches. So with that, I think I'm going to just go right through this. These are some of the mental health series topics. These are some of the newsletters that come out. I'm going to end with this video. because this is another opportunity for the foundation puts these together at no charge for you, the district, to jump on a family mental health night. And these are every single month. So take a look at what a family mental health night looks like.
You have questions.
One of the things that I find that maybe we're needing more of is a conversation, a place to talk.
Is it something going on in our homes? Is it something in the schools?
We have answers.
No, it's none of that. It actually has a lot to do with this thing right here, our phones.
It's just really excited now
Adele.
to see something that's actionable
Adele?
that we could really provide as a
Okay.
resource.
Question. I've got a hand raised.
Okay.
Lisa Jean, if we're going to have to wrap this up in about a minute to give you time to answer some questions, because we want to leave about 15 minutes or so before 8:30 for general questions on this program or any other topics that people have high concerns about. Lisa Jean, if you've got a question for her.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just didn't realize I was, yeah. So my quick question is, just the way that things were phrased, it seemed like a lot of the language was coming from a very neurotypical lens. And so I'm wondering if you worked at all with like the autistic community to have supports that are really helpful, because from what I have heard from the autistic community, most therapy isn't a good fit, and it often does more harm because most therapists don't know what works for people who are autistic.
I hear you. I hear you. So we are only a foundation that's only 2 years old, and it's pretty darn impressive. We've gotten these tools out as fast as we have. We just haven't gotten to everyone yet and to meet everyone's needs. We hired like the top suicidologists in the country because we really want to come at this as a save a life standpoint, right? So we've come out that way, and so maybe the expectation over the next couple years is to have more autistic specialization, right? Have more experts weigh in and have different versions.
Yeah, that sounds great. If you ever want to collaborate, I'm happy to.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Adele, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
There's like 130 something languages spoken in Boston Public Schools. How are you guys working around providing various languages and multilingual therapists?
Sure. My Life is Worth Living, that's on the 988 Suicide Crisis Lifeline, I think is now in about 8 different languages. Parentguidance.org is only in Spanish at this moment, and our coaches are both English and Spanish. When we do the mental health series, which is a contracted service for districts, you would provide interpreters. So that's how we've been working with like the Dallas ISDs and some of the super large districts.
Okay.
And Adele, I have one more quick question for you.
Sure.
Candace, Kelsey, I'm wondering, I know, obviously in the interest of reaching sort of the broadest audience, and some of the topics we heard about were great. And as you said, I think not the sort of scarier, or the topics that are really quite frightening for a lot of our families. Obviously they have disabilities or they wouldn't be here right out of the gate. But in addition to a lot of primary or tertiary disabilities are, significant mental illness and mental health diagnoses and concerns. And people are honestly really afraid to talk about it because it becomes a triaged issue where they're solving X all the time, a physical disability or autism diagnosis, or, the list goes on. And these other topics you were talking about that are really difficult for people to talk about. suicide, those kind of interventions, it's honestly take a back seat, sadly. I'm sure, a lot of people would agree with that. And I guess my question is, what, when a family sort of connects, and is there any mechanism that determines they need additional supports, help immediately? How does that work? If a parent, goes on and tries to access the detailed information and realizes, I really need immediate help with something, how do I get that more tangibly? How does the site sort of service that feature?
It does not. So, right, it's a resource. It's
Yep.
like going to a library. It's like getting, pulling books off shelves and you get a resource in your home 24/7 tech.
Yes.
From a certified and licensed therapist, right? But we can't, get granular.
No.
Because, right. So, but when you work with our coaches, and that's something, again, that's a contracted service that you don't have at this time, our coaches actually are going to be working through a parenting app, and then you're going to work together and try to manage emotions in the home. And it is really about keeping the relationships and the anxiety level in the home down, right? So that's what we are focused on. Now, somebody put in the chat, if I don't have suicide issues, can I still use the resource? Of course. Of course. I mean, there were resources in there just saying, hey, what can I expect when my child's emotionally developing age 5?
Yes.
10, so on. So
no, it's great.
those
It's a great
suicide-
clarification, because I think it tells our families, right, well, there's a plentiful resources available. This is a great
Absolutely.
tool that also makes it accessible to people at home. And then I see another hand raised with Dr. Amador,
Right.
who may want to speak to that as well. But I appreciate that clarification for families.
Thank you for raising that question. I just want to make sure everyone is aware that if you have urgent mental health needs for your student, please reach out to your student's school. And every single school in BPS has a school psychologist and a social worker, and your principal can connect you and your child to those services during the school day. And if families have urgent mental health needs for their student outside of the school day, they can use the Best Team services, and I'll put that information in the chat.
Thank you for that.
I'd also like to
Dr.
know,
Amador has a great
Dr.
team.
Amador and for Ms. Winter, whether any efforts are made to integrate psychiatric care with intervention specified on an IEP. Is there sort of a globalization of services in that regard? Has anybody given any thought to that?
I'll let you take that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I entirely understand the question. So it is BPS staff, school psychologists, or social workers that provide the mental health services in the IEP. And then if a student needs additional psychiatry services outside of that, then the school team is working with the family to find those services and refer them. So as a district, we're obligated for those mental health services, again, listed in the IEP, that are impacting the student's ability to access the curriculum. And then we're working with the healthcare system to provide more acute mental health care. So we do have partnerships with over 25 of the community mental health programs in the city. And so we do have access both to the Best Team, to the Boston Metro DMH, and many of the providers, so that we can support families in making that connection.
So
Did
these are really
that
two-
answer your question, Jeff?
I think so. What I'm hearing is that these are really two parallel tracks to care for our kids.
Yeah,
the-
we focus on parents and families.
Yeah.
And we wanted to bring this resource to families, so they had another way to access information. There's different ways that the district has supported families. So for example, my department during COVID has had family coffee hours, and parents could come and talk about whatever needs they had. But this is a much more comprehensive and developed parent training program. that is free. And when our department first started to partner and find out about it, we wanted to make sure parents were aware.
I see a hand from Mr. or Mrs. iPhone. You want to unmute yourself?
Thank you, Nicole.
Or maybe I can unmute you for you. Maybe, maybe not.
I think I had to make that person co-host, so I'm just.
They're being asked to unmute, but they're not clicking the button to unmute themselves.
Okay.
Well, if you can type in the chat, I can relay the question. Be happy to. Oh, when I see in the chat now, Dr. Amador has added a link to the BEST team. They are, for people that don't know, they are really a critical resource because they act as a sort of a mediation between the family, between the healthcare system, indeed between the police and the ambulance and fire service. And they provide this critical sort of like mini care team where if there's some mental health crisis that your child's going through, acute normally, they make a point of calling you back once or twice a day. How's your child doing? Are they getting the care? Has there been follow-up? Is there anything more we can do? So that you know as a family, you have not been just sort of left out to hang by yourself in the midst of this crisis. The BEST team, they can't solve all your problems. They're not coming to your house to provide acute psychiatric care, but they can make sure that you're not alone and that they can hook you up to the services that your child needs and to do the follow-up work, the leg work that so many of us really need help with.
And that was really great to sort of piggyback off what Jack just said with regard to Adele's contribution too. I think it's such a short while away that we remember, particularly during COVID, how lonely a time that was. And this is such a great resource for people ultimately to have one more way to connect, because so many of our families with disabilities can't walk out the door as freely as everyone else, right? To go and access certain kinds of care. So it's a tremendous resource for people in that position too.
Yeah,
So
and
thank
especially
you.
when you've got kids with complex cases. I mean, I've got a kid who's autistic and has 3 major psychiatric disorders. It's non-trivial. If you've got a child with physical disabilities, they're going to have emotional and mood disorders or the potentiality for it. You're going to get it. It's more than one thing, and stuff like the BEST team and parents guidance programs like Miss Winter's been presenting to us. These are critical. But I'm on a soapbox, and we've got about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to leave time for general questions or particular concerns among people who are attending. If we can help to direct you to services or for follow-up later on. Does anybody have some questions, concerns out there?
The question in the chat is asking, how long will this resource be available?
Absolutely, as long as we are putting it out there. So there is no end date. Our benefactors are moved by this mission. So you can access parentguidance.org, and we're actually looking at adding new courses every month. We just did a whole mental health series, which is actually for parents that it's virtual on vaping. I had no idea vaping was that dangerous. I learned so much from when we put all these materials out that come directly from our therapists. So yes, it is available to you forever.
There's a question from Quandra Burrell in the chat. Are compensatory services separate from the IEP? My understanding is actually compensatory services would be driven by the IEP. You got to have the IEP first, and then we identify areas where the IEP is not being fulfilled, and that drives compensatory services decisions. But are there any BPS people that could correct me or expand on that? No, did I get it right? I got it right. Wow.
I think you got it right. Or we can follow up if you didn't.
Any other questions? Oh, here's one. Nicole asks, how can we find how many hours our students are owed? It's been rather wonky with communication from folks. That's depends entirely upon the IEP. You're going to need to meet with the IEP team. As my understanding is, this is an amount arrived at by consensus. There isn't some statutory rubric that we can point to say there's some one-for-one measurement. I think you're going to need to, as I say, meet with the IEP team to determine that. Oh, there's a good one. We're assuming, Ms. Winter, that the services that you would provide are, of course, there's no age limit. Your kid's your kid. It's not like you don't get to ask questions just because your kid turns 22.
So parents are parents, right? So we are teaching parents good parenting skills for all ages. And yes, there is nothing that's going to hold you back from going to these resources based on age. I hope I understood even that question right.
Yeah, I was reading into it, but I'm assuming that that's what it referred to. If this is Paula, Paula, if you're asking more generally about services provided by BPS for students, they discontinue the day your child turns 22. There should be a very long and involved transition process. Starts at age 14. Not all IEP teams need to provide transition services to the same depth that other teams need to. But once your child hits 22, then normally their care will transition over to DDS or DMH or some other agency to handle post 22 provision of services. Does that answer your question, Paul?
Oh, good. She says yes.
Okay. Somebody.
For Nicole, excuse me 1 second, Jack. Nicole, Cassandra is the AD here. Nicole's asking about comp services in her child. Would you be able to support her answer, whether in the chat or in breakout room? Because Nicole's asking about her specific child for special ed and BPS to answer her.
Sure, we could do a breakout room.
And Paula, that Strive program is pretty great. So yeah, it's worth reaching out to them. There's a question about from the ASL interpreter for Spanish, I believe. My son has problems with communications and I feel like he's not getting the help he needs. What should I do? That's a big question. It sounds like it's IEP time, or at least a discussion needs to happen. Is there a BPS person that can reach out to Justin?
Yes, Yashi's reaching out to her in Spanish. So she wrote it in Spanish. She's communicating directly with her in Spanish.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I reached out.
Thanks,
And
Yashi.
Roxanne, take care of it 1 second.
Great. Thank you very much.
Jack, can I just comment? I just was looking in the chat. So in terms of how the formula is derived for the amount of hours for compensatory, that was determined by the IEP team looking at the service grid and number of missed sessions. And so if you have specific questions about that, the student's coordinator would be the person who has that data.
Thank you. More questions? We only have 1 more minute left, so we've got 57 minutes left to go way over time.
It's true. Thank you, Yashi, for putting that contact in the chat as well about Strive.
Yeah, and we want to remind families that we are, well, not us, but the Federation for Children with Special Needs and other organizations are helping families of students who have turned 22 during the pandemic. So it would be great if you connect with Strive and they can support you with that process as well.
Great.
Question about
And that
your-
also includes students who turned 22 during COVID. There is still funding out through the state agencies that the child may now be around 24, 25. There is still grants through Mass Rehab, DDS, and the agencies that you can definitely be connected with.
We have Guadalupe asking, if I understand correctly, Guadalupe, she objects to her child not being granted summer program in the IEP. Again, that's an IEP issue, but I'm not sure about what would happen if she rejected the IEP. Who should we direct her to?
The ADs on the call are the ones that would either talk to the person privately about their individual child, or they would share their contact information. But specific children requests, as we're now at 8:30 instead of a breakout room, Cassandra, if you don't mind putting your contact information in the chat so Guadalupe could reach out to you if you're willing to take her contact information. And so to help her resolve the special ed challenge that she's having at her school, that would be helpful.
I'll put my email in the chat so that other parents can have it as well.
Thank you.
So it is 8:30. So we really wanted to thank everyone for staying in here with us, and for our speakers, our interpreters, and our families, of course, and the BPS staff that have been here to support. We thank you all for joining us tonight and hope you have a great night. The video and the presentations in a couple of weeks will be on the SpEdPAC website available. But if you have any questions in the meantime, or need the surveys in the other languages for the Chief of Specialized Services or the OMME Chief to give your feedback on what skills these individuals should have to lead and make sure they're providing appropriate services and guidance to everyone at the schools so our children are receiving FAPE, then please feel free to reach out to Boston SpEdPAC 411@gmail.com.